Of course, I think art can change the world in so many ways. Even through our creations, our work, our choreographies, we can make a difference in the society. And I think we can use the art as a catalyst to create awareness and to be able to change things that are happening in our societies. Yes, I think there are a lot of expectations from the Western society because already when they see you or when they see somebody, it's a person with color, they expect more from you. They expect things that they think everybody who's from Africa could do. But things are quite different because I mean we are all individuals. Even though we are from Africa, we are all individuals. For example, like people think all Africans can drum, all Africans can dance, all Africans can do things, and there is this stereotypical questions that they ask, which yeah, it's a bit cliche. So there are these things that they expect from somebody with color or somebody from Africa, to be precise.
I would like to start from the second point that Felix brought, and probably I should start from you, Rima, but no, actually I would like to ask Christoph, because you work with lots of politically charged topics. I mean, the last, and I see the difference, for example, with the work Banner or Detrow or Golden Stars on Blue, which somehow I would say that these are the critical topics that might really touch you. But then your last projects, the Witch Dance project, and the studies on post-colonial studies, or not necessarily, or I don't know, I wonder how much are these topics that they really touch you as a person, and how actually why you're using or why you're taking this kind of subjects, why that would be your interest, and to whom you actually address them.
Well, like each of the projects you mentioned were at a different target. So the Witch Dance project was born out of this idea to step back a little bit, like because it's more I create a frame or just gave them a topic, but then I didn't do so it's a commissioned work now, so I didn't do it myself. This is what when I said before, like okay, what could I give back, or how can I use my position or my experience in a certain way in the scene, like to. So this project is one of these. It was like the idea to do something that's, invite more people. So actually, it was very nice. Yeah. So it was a very nice experience also for myself. The other ones, like the post-colonial thing, is because also I spoke a lot with like people of color and like dancers, and this was more based on like their stories or the things that they told me. I did an interview project because they were exactly talking about like African contemporary, because we say African contemporary, not Western Europe contemporary, so which we should, because it's just one conception, one concept of dance. So I made an interview project with a lot of people, like, okay, what does that mean to you, African contemporary? So, and we hopefully, we proposed it to the Dance Congress, and maybe they will do something to explore this a little further. So, what was the third project?
No, I actually mentioned this, yes, although maybe you could say something about Shiros.
Yeah.
Because actually Shiros is really your choreography. I mean, you're credited as a choreographer, and this is and there's 6 women involved.
Yes. Well, I started to do a bit of research on like second wave feminism, like just for myself. and there was like a phase, I would say, and then I just found this term, and I realized that it's unlike heroines, it's not very often used, so it's neutral. It could be filled with something, you know, like the term sheroes. And then I had there were a lot of people, like a lot of performers I always wanted to work with, and so this was then the opportunity to invite them. I had a residency in Leipzig, so I said, okay, let's go off to Leipzig and work on this topic. So so it was a very nice, also a very interesting experience. So, but again, there's choreographer, and I brought in this term sheroes, but then again, it's a research, like everybody contributes, and it's not necessarily like that I use them as like like operators in my artistic strategies.
What is the piece? What is Shiro's? Like what the execution of it? Is it a performance?
Yeah, so it's just like, it's a 90 minutes dance piece, so to speak. Yeah. So.
But is it your, as a wild male person, is it your perspective on the topic of the second wave feminism? Or?
No, it's just like I came across the term while I was just studying or doing a bit of research. So, and then it's more like, what could that be? Like a shero. How would so, and we came up with a thesis that is that shero would be the end of the heroic as we know it. So, and to find together with them an expression for a character, or so, and it was then there's a certain statement maybe in the piece that it's the collective. So that's and of course it's the way it is structured is of course my perspective. So, but I'm not speaking for like the whole, like the woman of the world or something. It's about like with very specific with this group of people like working on this topic and finding.
And with colonialism, it was exactly the same situation?
Yeah, that's it's a result of like 3 or 4 years kind of, I was collecting stories, and well, there's always like a process sometimes, like how I come to a certain topic. This was like this one of the dancers I worked with is from Burkina Faso, so he told me about like the Chinese intervention and the cheap Chinese rice in Burkina Faso. That is a big topic. And I said, okay, I have a Chinese dancer I know from Canada. So I brought them together. So they were exchanging a little bit the position, and then we started to make a piece out of it. So that was one part of this study. So there are a lot of, I'm working within the field of working with people, and then there are topics, they emerge, so to speak, and then we going further, trying to explore.
And just the last thing,
yeah.
I go to the other side of the table. But how then the people are credited in this? Because I'm still trying to push a little bit. What does it mean that you, like, what is your perspective? Like, why you're taking such a topic as colonialism? And you work with the people that they touch this topic in a different way that touches you, and still you're the one who's making the piece, so of performance. So I just wonder how is also in terms of politics, how is it credited?
Now, first of all, all the topics are about dance. It's like we talk. Yeah. It's we are not. It's always like post-colonial in dance. So it's something because it's my reality. So they approach me, or they are there. I work with them. So I'm reacting on my reality. So I'm with all the studies have to do with dance. So that's the first thing. So it's then I see myself like an artistic director, so to speak. So that's and they are credited like von und mit, like by and with. Nah? So and I think also if you would see if you watch the piece, like I never had that people like afterwards saying, okay, that's he's how would you say, you occupy that, or wie sagt man, aufoktroyieren. So it's their piece then in a way as well. Like, so I'm trying to they have that they can speak in this piece, and then that the piece opens a channel towards them.
But officially, it is your piece.
Officially, yeah, like it
And
depends
you
what kind of perspectives or concepts you have of an artistic director, and like the decision of an artistic director not necessarily top to the bottom. So there can be there are a lot of ways of doing it. So and you see at the end, it's you see the piece, and then you can say more because you see how it is made. So that's.
So now I turn to Rima. Rima, do you feel how do you feel about the words opinion that Felix said, that there is a certain expectation from actually Western society to be from so to represent
the other part of the world.
other part of the world, and since you're coming from this part of the world when there's constant crisis, how much it's also expected from you that you will speak about this crisis, speak through this crisis, that you will always bring this crisis. And I just recently found this beautiful letter to the editor by Adrian Piper, when she says, please don't call me a black artist, please don't call me a black philosopher, please don't call me an African American artist, please don't call me an African American philosopher, and so on, so on. So she really comes
and I
throughout
think
the
like
whole list.
the beauty of this poem is through its repetition, right? And this is how it's valid, because the thing is that, for example, what I said, like, we are all individuals. We are individuals in the video. Felix, his name,
Yes.
right? This resonates with me on a complete level, right? Because all the time when you're working outside the context, or outside, I guess, your home, especially coming from a different system, so to speak, especially within art and what art is, and how you are an artist at all. Then your defense systems are a bit different, and when you come to here, when you arrive, then there's questions that you thought, I already left these questions way back in my history. Why suddenly I have to be obliged to answer these questions? And yes, for example, I am expected, as a person coming from Lebanon, speaking Arabic, to work on the refugee problem, or on the refugee crisis. I am expected to go and sit into political discussions regarding anything that is related to the refugee crisis. I am expected to be writing about it. I am expected to raise awareness about it, and all of this. And I feel my position, for example, regarding this crisis exactly, is as an artist coming from there, is not to talk about the refugee crisis from the point of view of refugees, as if I'm representing them, because only I speak the same language of some of them, not all of them, but actually to see the other side as well, right, for example. And I think for me, this space anyway of identity and how it's like conceived in here, this is one of my main playgrounds. So for me, this is kind of the crisis that I'm always talking about in my work, because it's it's a position that is not with other Arab artists, let's say, and it's not with the Western artists as well, or German artists, or I don't know. I don't care which artist, you know. It's not because I think a lot of time inside the work, it's not about where you are from or all of this. It's more about like the interest into this dialogue and what we're creating and how we're transforming ourselves and transforming the other person inside this dialogue. And for me, it's interesting that you work on post-colonialism and you work on feminism, and yet these are not, you don't see them as crisis. Like you were talking in the beginning of the discussion that like there is problematics, I think, or something problem and not crisis, and they're not my own and everything. But for me, like for example, I regard myself as a post-colonialist product, you know, because this is how Lebanon was created after colonialism, and everything is going on now is post-colonial discourse. And so for me, it's a weird, this kind of position, like we need to be very clear about positions, especially when we speak about topics like this, because we are individuals inside these mechanisms. It's not something that is viewed only on TV or something we only read in books. No, it's actually real. And it's a product, it's a production, and it's a constant production. So, and it's interesting to look at it and position oneself inside all of this. So what else? And I liked a lot what he said, Alex said about stereotypical cliches. Really, I think this term, it had like valuable production, and I think a lot of people of color actually do work inside of this paradigm, and a lot of people actually fall into it because it's easier sometimes to be comfortable and to fall inside this space of like, I'm gonna play down this role actually. Yeah.
Yeah, I was referring more to that crisis, not like when you name or like you did, like crisis of white supremacy or crisis of colonialism. That's, of course, you could say that's a crisis. That's to narrow down to a certain that makes it easier to speak about, like about colonialism or like participation or whatever. So as to talk about the crisis as.
But what is the crisis? I don't have grasp.
Yeah, because that was the question. That's why the crisis. What is the crisis? So there are certain like specific crises, or I call them problems. Nah? So which doesn't mean they're less urgent. Nah? So it's just like if you say art and the crisis, what do you mean? So, like, was just my...
Yeah. I mean, if I could jump in, I think that there's a danger where if you kind of say that there are these different subjects, but in the end it's about dance, then the medium becomes the message, and by virtue of that, then you have the danger of kind of creating a platitude about, you know, everything is equal, everything is nice and smooth, and there's nothing here to worry about. And in a sense, I find that this also, like this environment itself doesn't have a kind of self-reflexivity. It doesn't necessarily push the problem of like critical self-reflection any further. I think in a sense there's a danger as well when you go from discussing like someone who is engaged with post-colonial politics, and then they come around the table and you go, well, then that must be your time to talk because you understand a post-colonial politic. And there's very much a danger, I think, of just creating a platitude. And I think if art is worth anything at all, it's about critiquing the environments within which it exists. And I think that's something which...
What do you mean by platitude?
Well, like the platitude is kind of to say, well, we've got to this point where we acknowledge that there is this, say, like inherent lack of fairness within capitalism, or there is a kind of inherent bias towards white men, or there is an inherent kind of problem with the environment or whatever, and you get to a certain point and then you talk about them all on the same level and all in the same way, and then this is your platitude. It's like, this is what neoliberalism does, is it flattens out critique. That's its whole object role, you know, is to flatten things out and make them consumable sound bites, whatever you want to call it, and then it can be absorbed more easily into the discourse, even, right? Yeah.
Would you like to respond?
Well, but it's, I would agree to that. No, so that's what I mean. About I could give you like an explanation about all the topics and the Genese, like how we came to the topic and so on, why and it's sometimes it's different. So there are different sources. So, but that's makes it, and it's quite often, like you said, if I work with a colleague from Lagos, Nigeria, so we quite often say, okay, where do we, or how do we get funded? No? So what could we do? And then he said, we would probably not get money for a project that's on the beauty of the color red. The moment, no? If you see this Bundeskulturstiftung initiatives, so of course you always think, okay, what do you write? Like, what could we do together? Like, what could we work on? So
in other words, you would say that actually the whole system, institutional system, the system of grants, they actually demand somehow that we bring certain topics and that we have to write our applications according to these topics in order to make any other work.
They have they focus on certain topics. No? So, for example, I'm working very closely with a Chinese dancer, Chinese performers, and all of the projects got rejected. Like I wrote a couple, like just because there's a focus now, like on North Africa and certain other like Szenenwechsel or whatever. Now you know the names, and of course with this focus, a lot of things won't happen. So that's what they do. They have an interest, and it's always like you have to find, okay, has this project would that have a chance at this funding body? Or how can, and if I don't see a chance, how could I manage to make it with maybe the money that I got from other projects?
I have a question. Do you try ever in your projects as well to question the system that it's built on? Like you have to apply for funding now because it's North Africa. So, like, do you take the funding and question the funding itself and the production, or do you show it to the people like, hey, we had to take this money, but it actually subjected a lot of people into, again, bordering them and labeling them and putting them on the side, or
well,
I don't know.
I'm working on a couple of projects that also, in a way, the Witchdance project was already something. So because I used my reputation to convince them in a way, so that they would fund this project. At the moment, I'm working a lot of the generation problem in the free theater scene, like so I initiated also a roundtable discussion like last year, and I wrote a project that's like a multi-generational house, like to see what other kinds of collaboration are possible, like what are the needs between the generations and as artists. So and yeah, so that's. I'm trying to do something good with them, like or using using the funding bodies. It's just very clear. So, and after like writing a lot of application and also getting a lot of them rejected, you see they have an interest. You and there's also I would say there's a lot of there's a force. They change. Also, the project changed. I have the feeling how people write projects. So that's yeah.
I'm sure that some people in this room, in our audience, would like to make a contribution. So this is the moment that we call the sour point.